Recording from the gateway to the Rocky Mountains, this is the Titan Applicators Podcast, where we dive deep into conversations centered around spray polyurethane foam and specialty coatings. I am your host, Tony Bach. In today's episode, I chat with Michael Fischer from the beautiful state of South Dakota, where my roots run deep. Michael is the owner of Dakota Applicators out of Gettysburg, South Dakota. Much like Titan Applicators, they are a spray foam and coatings company. Michael is a very close friend of mine and actually is the reason that I got into the foam and coat business. Michael has overcome a lot of adversity in his 10-year career. I chat with Michael about the spray foam struggles he and his brother DJ experienced in the early days of the company, Michael's decision to leave the family farm to focus solely on his business, and his expansion into a larger market. If you find any value in our conversation, I would be very appreciative if you hit that subscribe button, share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Without further ado, enjoy. Michael. Dakota Applicators. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody listening what Dakota Applicators is all about? How the heck did you get into the spray foam business? Fast forward to where you are today and anything that you'd like to share.
You bet. How's it going today, Tony? Good to be with you here.
Hey, Michael, I appreciate you joining.
You bet. I've been slated a couple different times and it hasn't worked out, and so you've had to get some other guys in. I enjoy listening to your podcast, so I'm glad I get to actually be a part of it and be a voice on it here today. I guess started back in 2009. My brother, DJ, he actually started the company back then. We were working for a crop dusting company, aerial spray pilots, we had some busy seasons and some dead seasons, and so figured, instead of just doing normal farm work and stuff like that, we're from the central part of South Dakota, so we've got about June, July, and August for the spray season, and so we were looking for other things to do during the off seasons of that. Our boss had originally bought the same rig that we use today, actually, he had some success just doing odds and ends, part-time type deal, but was finding success otherwise, so decided to get out of the business, and then we ended up getting it bought over for him. Did the same thing as what he had done for several years. I always felt, though, that it could be a standalone business instead of just a seasonal part-time gig. So I guess we never really pursued that. He actually passed away in 2014 in an airplane crash. So then I bought the remaining shares of the business from his wife and then kind of kept it part-time for a couple more years up until about 2017, and then said, you know what, we're getting busy enough with it, because I had left the spray business in 2015, like the crop dusting business. And then, went to work on the farm and still continued to do foam, just kind of part-time. When I had a job, I'd go do it. My family farm was pretty good to work for because it allowed you the freedom to do that. But when I saw the increase in demand, it wasn't very fair to my family to continue to, be relied upon at the farm, and then just kind of go do my own deal when I needed to. So I made the decision to leave the farm in 2017 to pursue spray foaming full time, And at the same time, we did an expansion down about 200 miles to the southeast of where I'm originally from, here in Gettysburg, down into a new territory where there's rapid expansion and building and everything like that going on right now, down to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with another good college mate of mine, Trent Delores. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we've been here the last couple of years. You know, he's in his third year now, 9 months into his third year. And we're seeing some more and more success every year. You know, it always takes time to build those new relationships and things like that. And so to keep everything cash flowing a little more properly, you know, we expanded into some other operations too, which is the same as you guys at Titan, doing, you know, the epoxy floors as well, which has been a really good line of revenue for us when we're not spraying. You know, we have such a sporadic schedule here in South Dakota. It seems like we might be dead slow for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden 3 weeks just nonstop, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, we had to find something for those 2 weeks that were just dead just to keep ourselves occupied, I guess. You know, you go kind of nuts just sitting around, you know, and
especially you.
Well, exactly. I can't sit around for more than 2 days, doesn't seem like. So, but yeah, it's been an experience. I'm really glad. I think the timing wise of doing what, you know, I did professionally and going full time with spray foaming was a really good time. I really think that spray foam is on the verge of almost, I don't know, I think with the efficiencies that a guy sees in it, it's taken over the world right now, in the building industry. There's some different people that I'm talking to, and I don't know how much you want to go into that, I guess, but some different people I'm talking to about even like tax credits, because of, you know, the efficiency gains, you know, instead of using fiberglass or fiberglass mixed with foam, which is, I mean, that's a great way to do insulation, in my opinion.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, having some SPF involved in the insulation process, and I don't know, that's still in the infant stages. Just like I said, just kind of talking to some people in the legislature right now, trying to move some of that stuff forward.
Well, that's definitely a huge part of, as you already know, a huge part of my passion and where I want to take the general concept of the content that I put online, as far as informing people and helping them understand the benefits, but also everything that goes into it. Before we get into that, why don't you take us back to the beginning of Dakota Applicators? Were you and I were in college when DJ started the company, right?
Yeah. So he like I said, he bought it in 2009. So we were a couple years in, and I think it helped him. One of his first couple jobs that he had done, like he's like, "Hey, I bought this rig. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but come spray for me, so I can watch the machine." Basically, is how it kind of came out. Oh man, those first couple jobs look like crap because there again, he bought the rig from another guy who took him through the 5-minute tutorial. Said, "Hey, yeah, I'll sell you my rig," and then just kind of disappeared. Got his, $35,000, whatever we paid for it. I can't even tell you exactly what it was, but 0.0 technical support, basically. which I think is one of the biggest issues in our entire industry, to be honest with you, is no oversight, no barriers to entry. I mean, literally, if you got $35,000 and 2 arms, you can do spray foam, is what they think. And looking back now, I wish we would have had a lot more help. We've learned a lot through the years, just through, lots of extra hours that didn't need to be on the job site because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Air codes, guns plugging up, air issues, moisture in their line issues. I mean, transfer pumps with gloves in them. I mean, just like things that you can't even fathom, like the equipment that we just hobbled together so then we could get done with the job. And like I said, it was part-time, so then you get done with that job and then you'd say, oh, I'll fix that later. Well, it would never get fixed. So the next job you'd have the same issues and you'd be on a 4-hour job for, 2 days trying to, get the job done. And the foam looked like crap. We didn't have the proper
PPE.
Yeah, PPE, there you go. None of that. I mean, we were wearing a half mask with those painter goggles, so at the end of the day you'd get done and your eyes, you'd want to rip them out of your head because, those fumes were still getting to you. You weren't getting particles in your eyes, but the gas off, the off gas off the foam, it was still getting through there, And so, yeah, I think that first job, it really turned me off because there again, I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not just as easy as going up to a wall and spraying it, most of the time.
Right.
If some people have had that experience, good for them where, that got them sparked, but I'm sure that most of them even learned later on that there's way more to this too,
So you were learning with DJ when he first started. He picked it up as a side gig.
Yeah.
You graduate college. I can't remember exactly how that happened, but you pretty much jumped right in with them, right? Right after you got out of school.
Yeah. So 2012 when I graduated. 2012 is when I graduated, and we had come to an agreement, just to have me work into the business. Like I didn't take any salaries for the first, I don't know how long it was. Seemed like a lot more phone. Like I'd have been better off going and getting a loan because I don't think I made partner until year 2.5, and I sprayed $150,000 worth of foam. So he got the good end of that deal. But yeah, so 2012 partnered up with him, and I was kind of the sprayer at that point. Like he showed me the ropes that he knew, and then he kind of stepped away from it and just did the accounting, did orders, made sure we had parts and stuff like that. But there again, it was still different because it was still not his. It wasn't his dream, and I saw the potential. I don't think he ever really saw it as like a standalone, we could make a killing business out of this. He more or less saw it as a side gig that he could maybe buy an extra snowmobile with a year or something like that, or an extra vacation fund. And so...
Knowing what you know now, do you think that would have been a sustainable thing for him? As far as keep maintaining a side gig to buy toys and to make a little extra income?
No, absolutely not. I mean, with all the headaches that you get from, spraying once every 2 weeks, every month, something like that, the maintenance on the machine was becoming more of a headache every year. As those machines get older, they take more maintenance. And, the more they're used, the better they run, it seems like, in my opinion. You let them things sit and they just go to heck, in no time, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one where a 4-hour job should have taken you, or something that should have taken you 4 hours takes you 10, because you just think everything should work perfectly. Well, then you're mad at the machine for not operating the way it should when you haven't been giving it any love the last month and a half type deal,
Right.
So operating as a part-time, I'll do my own stuff that I'm building, or I'll just do the projects that come to me, and not actually going out and chasing down leads and stuff. For us, it wasn't going to work, because it just, like I said, every time, this gun was put on brand new a month and a half ago, well, it had sat for a month. And so then you go to spray, well, what's the first thing you're doing? You're changing the gun out.
Right.
Because there was moisture in the line, or there was this or that. It's just, it's not sustainable, in my opinion, for someone to buy a machine and just use it once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year even. That thing's got to be running multiple sets a year. I mean, I'd say it's once every week it needs to be spraying, just to keep things from setting up and, becoming that headache, I guess is kind of how I'd say that.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, no, it was not sustainable.
So fast forward a little bit, and, DJ died tragically in a accident. You acquire the company, or you buy his fiance out, or his wife out. At that point, you already had years under your belt. You had extensive experience. You're primarily spraying agricultural applications, shops, warehouses. What else?
Oh, we were doing houses. I mean, we were kind of all. The company organically grew in our area, just with the fact that doing a good job and, like I said, staying on the job until the job was done. I mean, we weren't working a regular, when we had a job to do, we weren't working a normal 9 to 5. It was, let's burn a, 16-hour day, 2 days in a row to get this house done so the contractors can move forward and stuff like that. And having good, good end results, nice, clean work. Word of mouth really helped us out, and so it was really starting to grow by 2014 right when DJ when he passed away. I would say was kind of geared up to be our best year, at that time. But after all that, there was just no way I was functioning properly and stuff like that for several months after that. So it did kind of take a toll that year. But even that next year, because I turned a lot of jobs down that I would have normally taken, just because I just wasn't feeling it so much.
Right.
And so, kind of got out of that first year funk, that you get in when you lose someone close. And then, that next year came out swinging pretty good right away in the spring, and then was still working for the crop dusting company. I'm sorry, no, 2015 is when I was done with them. I worked that first summer after, but then went to work on the farm, and like I said, had some big projects coming our way and stuff. Was still working foam, fairly part-time. But, I mean, it was organically growing. To where, like I said, the next year I just decided that it was time to hang it up at the farm and go do this more full time.
Right.
Because, it's just too tough to balance, and then, right when your busy season hits, it's harvest time or something like that, and I was turning jobs down because I was in the tractor, during combine season, and I mean, the there's no lie about it. There is good money to be made if you're efficient with what you do in spray foam.
Yep.
I mean, if you are economical and can go in and knock these jobs out in the time that it's supposed to take, there is profit to be made. But, I was turning those jobs down because I had to be in the tractor in the field. I can't just, I got to go spray this, 5,000 square foot shop, because we're in the field.
Right.
And if these customers start hearing that, then they're not going to call you, They want your number one job to be spray foam. Like, I think that's a big thing now. Like, being a professional at your trade, not just kind of doing it part-time.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So you doubled down on the business by leaving the farm. You've healed as best as you could after losing your brother. In my opinion, as a friend, you're stronger as a person and business owner moving forward. At that point, you'd had extensive experience spraying foam. Obviously, with polyurethane foam, especially with your resume, there's a lot of different directions that you could go with it. Interior, roofing. But one of the things that you and I did, we did a spin-off and we added coatings to our repertoire. At what point did you decide that you wanted to start growing the business? What were the things that what were the options that you weighed, and what factors played into you expanding into Sioux Falls and adding floor coatings and the other things that you do?
Well, the Sioux Falls deal, that was, Trent, my partner down there was, he was at a desk every day and was tired of that kind of work. And so he had expressed the fact that he was wanting to, do something different and do his own deal down there. And I said, well, yeah, that's perfect, let's do it. And I mean, without even really looking at any markets or any of that kind of stuff, we just kind of, we're going to do this. Went down to the home show, thought, oh man, the way that they're building down in Sioux Falls, it should be a no-brainer, and, boy, did we fall flat on our face that first year. It was, we did some jobs, don't get me wrong, but, things don't just happen overnight in this business. You still got to develop those relationships. And, we were and still are fairly opposed to doing fiberglass, like just batting a house. My deal behind that is if I'm offering the best, why would I do the worst, in my opinion? Because, I think that if there was SPF involved in the project, then we would consider more of it. But I wasn't going to go just stuff fiberglass in a house because I didn't believe in it. Still don't. And so if we're doing a job, there's got to be spray foam in there somewhere, whether it be in the rim joist, if it be a 1-inch application, then bat hybrid system. But we're doing foam where we feel it needs to be, and that's not just because it's. I mean, there's money to be made in any aspect. If you do the labor, there's going to be money made there. So it doesn't matter which product you're putting in. It's what I felt and still feel, and then that's the way we go. It's what I feel is the best for that homeowner. So even though it is 2.5 times as expensive, product-wise with labor, my deal is that we can honestly, at the end of the day, go to bed saying that it's going to pay itself off in 3 to 5 years. That's the industry standard, and that's where I make the sales. I probably lose a lot of sales because I'm pretty stubborn on the fact that, we won't just put fiberglass into your walls, because I just don't believe in it. So anyway, getting back to that first year, we kind of, we kept busy in my original market in the Gettysburg area. It was a good way for Trent to spend a lot of time up here in Gettysburg that first year and a half, which is, I got to give him props, because that was a lot of time away from his wife, and he was putting in some long hours and things like that. But it was a good way for him to be learning. I mean, he got a lot of spraying on it, but it was all back up here for the most part. I would say probably 90% of the foaming that we did that first year was here in our original area. Now, you fast forward and get into that second year, with us falling so flat on our face, that first year, it was like our cash flow was just boom. It was in the tank. It was like, we're got to do something different here, because otherwise we're not going to be solving another year type deal. So we started thinking, we were doing Trent's roof actually down in Harrisburg. He had some hail damage. And so we're like, heck yeah, this is something that, pretty much you can do. I mean, roofing, shingling on that side of things, like houses and stuff like that, we could have been doing that. We got done with his house, though, and decided that we're not, we ain't spring chickens anymore. So, I mean, we spent 3 days on that roof in July heat and said, no, we're not doing this. But we needed to figure out another line of revenue, because, you got to pair it with something. Spray foam is not going to be the only thing that we do that's going to make this company grow and be prosperous. So I can't remember if it was a conversation you and I had or how that all came about, but I think, I was down in seeing some flooring stuff, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So we had talked about that school, and then that's when one of your guys, Jake, came over, and we went to San Diego to that school. And we had honestly sold our first coating, our floor coating, that first, before we even had any equipment to do the job, type deal. 2,600 square foot, and so that's when, and the beauty of it, there again, is in the area that we originally served, like the central part of South Dakota, nobody doing this kind of work. There might be a few guys that are they're again doing it part-time, but nobody's paired it with something that they're doing more full-time type deal.
Right.
And so, but yeah, that first year that we did that, which was 2019, it was kind of crazy. I mean, I think we ended up doing we only did 18 floors or something like that. But now this year we'll triple that, so that growth has just been exponential for us. Right. And, it's great. I mean, because, for us, it pairs well. Oh, hey, we're doing your garage, your house, we're spraying that whole thing. Here, let's pair that together with, do you want to do an acid stain on some of your concrete in the basement? Or, do you want to do an epoxy floor in your garage? Or, what do you want to do on your patio? There's just other things that you can pair that with that we've seen a lot of success with so far. Right. I'm really, really excited about that portion of our company and the growth that we could see. I mean, for us, spray foam is going to be what it's going to be until we can keep developing those contractor. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people in this business, a lot of competition in spray foam. And there's a lot of companies that have been around for a long time. But with us being younger and ready to go, I mean, we don't have 5-6 guys working for us. It's myself or Trent that are on every job right now. And so we kind of play to that too. Like, we are the ones bidding it, we're the ones doing it type deal.
Right.
And I know we can't sustain that very much longer. Going to need to get some more helpers and things like that too. But the spray foam is, I don't know. I think we're going to see an increase in it, but it's got to be an organic growth there. So we push a lot of our resources like that. That's, I guess, organically. I don't know what I mean by that. Let's see. I mean, like, it's going to be contractor relationships, with general contractors and things like that, to where your marketing for, like, the floor coatings is going directly to the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's created different challenges marketing-wise, because you don't, like, spray foam, we thought, use Facebook and that'll get it to the homeowner type deal. Well, at the end of the day, they're just going to listen to their general contractor, and he's probably got a guy that he's used for umpteen years to do his spray foaming or his insulating on these homes.
Right, and he wouldn't know until somebody else delivers for him.
Right, yeah. And so, like, spray foam for me is, going direct to the contractors. Our trade shows, different things like that, that's where that market's at. Like, you've got to get with those general contractors, the carpenters, those people, and just get in front of them. Now, the other side, the floor coatings and things like that, that is direct to your homeowners. I mean, I don't know. I guess.
Well, and even moving from Gettysburg, which for those people that are listening that aren't familiar with Gettysburg, South Dakota, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Gettysburg it's an ag community. It's a small rural, central South Dakota. So moving from Gettysburg to Sioux Falls, the economic and geographic variables are pretty drastic. We can go back to that in a second, I guess. One of the things I just want to take another step back to when you first were starting with DJ, or even when you were starting off on your own without DJ after the fact. There's a lot that goes into foam, and it, spray foam application carries its own set of challenges and requires different equipment, training, knowledge to perform. Is there anything that specifically sticks out in your mind from the early days when you were just learning? Especially, it didn't seem like you had much technical support that you and DJ or that you had to figure out on your own?
PPE. The one thing that I cannot push hard enough anymore. I laughed right away at the PPE police because, they're always saying, make sure you wear your mask, all that stuff. Well, I was 25, 26 when I started, I'm bulletproof still, The first time that I sprayed with a full face mask with a fresh air respirator changed my view on that entire thing.
Right.
It literally, I never thought, I thought you were supposed to feel like shit after spraying all day, because you're hot, you're sweaty, you're doing different things all the time, moving all the time. So I thought you were just supposed to feel crummy after spraying all day. Well, it turns out you're not. I mean,
right.
Yeah, you can be sore, but you don't have to have trouble breathing. You don't have to have your eyes that you want to tear out of your head. You don't have to be scratching at your arms to try and get spray foam that's cured on there off. No, I mean, because we used to use old long sleeve shirts, and for some people that probably works, but I'm a bigger dude, and even XLs, those long sleeve shirts end up coming up your arms. or you end up bending different ways. I mean, there's always different positions that you're in, reaching, doing different things. And inevitably, you would end up with foam on you somewhere, Well, now, and this is just, I don't know when this, let's see, it was after DJ was gone, then I got my first full face mask. And I literally, I mean, I remember that day because it was like, I don't feel like crap, like, why didn't I have this 5 years ago?
Yeah.
So if there's anyone that's listening that's just starting off in the business, like, seriously, that's the biggest thing that I would push on you. Protect yourself, because you're not going to be good to anyone with a shitty set of lungs, I think people that don't get into the proper PPE right away, they're the ones that burn out the fastest, and they get sensitized to this stuff, and it becomes a nightmare for you.
Right.
So, like, that was one of the biggest things that, like, I saw from when he was kind of running everything to when I was. That, and then developing more of a parts program. I mean, I by no means have a, good parts program, but it's better than what it was before. I mean, we were changing guns constantly because we had crap parts. I mean, chambers that were, way too old and gummed up, and there was no saving them, but somehow we'd make them work, and so the patterns were crappy. So investment in the proper, parts that make your machine work the way it's supposed to.
Well, you had indicated early on you didn't have that technical support.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did you and DJ figure it out when things went wrong?
Well, there was a lot of just phone, like, we had phone calls, like, you know how it is, like, you get a rep from your product that you're buying, and he gets you in touch with some dude that is somewhere that works for some company anyway, and they would talk you through, like, oh, this is what's going on, or this is what's going on, but never anybody on site to, like, oh man, this, like, why don't you have, I sprayed for the first, I think it was 2016, before I got my first air dryer in my rig. I mean, you don't think we were burning through way more parts and probably spraying some not so good foam, having moisture blowing through our lines that entire time?
Right.
I mean, you know how it is. You look at foam and it looks good, and I think it was just fine. Normally, when you have moisture issues, you can see that in the foam, But if you have moisture in your lines, right there, like, that's gonna
going through O-rings.
I mean, yeah, burn your O-rings, give you way more issues than you could ever imagine. So didn't have one of those for the first several years that we operated, and then one time I had a reactor, my E20 that we had originally used, burned up. I think it was a motherboard or something like that. Anyway, I took it over to a company, and they looked at it and they go, they literally laughed at me, and they said, "You're operating out of this rig?" And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean,
you didn't know any better."
Well, didn't know any better, exactly. And so, can I name drop the company? Is that fine?
Well, as long as they agree to sponsor me.
Okay. CJ Spray over by Minneapolis. They refurbish and do all of Graco's machines, like any of their reactors, their paint machines, like anything that you have refurbished gets sent over to the CJ Spray over in the cities. And boy, I tell you, like, literally, the best thing that I ever had happen to me was having that reactor go out. Because, yeah, I went over there and I spent $15,000, on getting a new reactor, getting a new, fresh air pump, getting a new water or moisture, whatever the hell they're called, for my airlines. They reran all my transfer pump lines. They made it look like a professional rig. I mean, just some of that stuff that, literally, it looked like we threw, before I went over there, it looked like we threw a reactor in there and went and sprayed foam. Transfer pump lines on the floor, we ran off a generator a lot of times, which is fine, don't get me wrong, that's still how we do it today, but it was just, everything was just different. And when I got over there and actually got some knowledge and put that to use, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was probably 40% more efficient on job sites because of just proper tools, proper equipment to replace things. And, they looked at my gun parts, that I had there. And they said, are you giving us full run on your rig right now? I said, yeah. He's like, he took all my gun parts and threw them in the garbage. And so I had to start fresh. Not the handle and the head, but any of the other gun parts. And then they actually, they're like, you should have at least one more, if not two more heads for each handle type deal. And so, yeah, I said, okay, let's do it. And not only was I spraying better foam, but it was, like I said, I'd say conservatively 40% more efficient, that I was pulling up to jobs. I used to be able to, I'd say, it'll take me 2 days to do this job because I had to leave a day in there for breakdowns, Now I can say 2 days and we're pulling off the job site in a day, type deal. So proper tools are a huge deal.
Well, that's one of the things that I said early on in our career. I attribute a huge part of our success to the support that we had. The distributor that we purchased our equipment from and who built both of our spray foam rigs. And just a side note, if you hear any weird noises, Tucker's joined us. That's my 7-month-old son who woke up early from a nap, not cooperating today. But Profoam out of Georgia, they built both of our rigs, but early on, they had people out when things were going wrong. They were answering calls on holidays and after hours and helping us troubleshoot equipment. Looking back on the early days of Titan Applicators, knowing what we know now, we wouldn't have gone with the equipment that we had gone with, but it was all affordability in our eyes at that point. But in the long run, it cost us because we were spending so much time troubleshooting and fixing equipment. But on the flip side of that, it's also a blessing in disguise because we had to tear down that piece of equipment so often. We really learned the general mechanics of foam equipment. So I witnessed it as you were experiencing it after you got back from CJ Spray and were thinking, holy shit, this is like a whole new rig. Fast forward, you decide to expand into Sioux Falls, and you bring Trent on, who had helped you a number of times, but he had never been on his own. He couldn't troubleshoot equipment. Mm-hmm. What was it like for you being on the flip side of that after being a seasoned, experienced professional, bringing on somebody that you had to teach, just like DJ had to teach you when you first came on?
Mm-hmm.
Did it bring you back to the basics?
Yeah, stressful. Brought you back to the basics. Realized a little more like, everyone's got to start somewhere. Patience is a much needed deal if you're bringing a new guy on because, Trent is a talented individual, and it took some time to get things going for him. There's a lot more stuff to know than just spraying foam. There again, is it spraying good foam for one? That's a super simple thing you'd think, but if you come into a job and not know anything about it and you're starting fresh, like, how do they know any better? So you're on every job site and you're babysitting, and sometimes I'm sure he felt like, dude, he's just riding me all the time, and it's just like, and I probably was, but it's more so because it's like I'd been through that all, and it was hard for me to bring myself back to dumbing it down, I guess. That's a nice way to say it, I guess. Because...
Well, when you do something for so long on your own and you kind of figure things out by yourself, it makes sense in your own head because you've, more than likely you've been through that particular situation, but articulating it and writing it down or putting it out there so that somebody else can reciprocate that or can replicate that is a whole nother thing, which is, again, it kind of reinforces the appreciation for good technical support.
100%. Because, like, if Trent was spraying on his own or something, and he'd have a breakdown, I wouldn't be on the site. I'd do my best over the phone, because I'd know which part I'm talking about, but I mean, maybe he's not getting that, whatever, and someone else who's done it. But it's, I don't know, man, because it's hard, because once you get to know your equipment, you can fix most things in about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but getting to that point,
something's going on, like we just talked about it, and that's the way we had to do it, and I kind of had to, the way I'd kind of train with Trent, I guess, on issues was, let's start at the gun. Okay, what's the gun doing? And then we'd work our way back. And, is it something plugged in the gun? Is it something plugged in the hose? Is there something at the transfer pumps that's not working? I mean, and so we would walk through that stuff, and, I mean, I learned a lot more, I guess, about my equipment there again, having to go through all that again, because there's always new problems that develop too that you maybe didn't have before. But then you're walking through it with someone and then trying to explain why it's happening, or what this part does in the process, because we never did that right away. I mean, like, our training was, here, trying to go spray foam, best way to learn is on the job. That's always been my mentality. I don't have a manual for reading to learn about how to spray foam. Here's how I learned. So, the school of hard knocks, I guess, is what I've always found works the best in most situations. And I think that's true in spray foam, but having someone there that knows what's going on is a ticket right there, if that makes sense.
Totally,
I mean,
yeah.
Because, I could explain it and, try and get his pattern down. Like, I was very critical on, like, his spray techniques right away, because, I know what works for me. Well, what I found out is that doesn't work for everyone. What works for you as an individual sprayer might not work for anyone else on this planet. And so guys got to develop that on their own, and the only way they can do that is by spraying. And it's going to take some mess ups. It's going to take some, you're not going to have the efficiency that you maybe could have sprayed, because they're still learning. And so you got to remember that as a, someone that's bringing someone on is, there's a lot of bumps in the road on that front too. It's not, for us guys that have been, at it for as long as I have now. I mean, I'm not an old timer by any means, but, 10 years is a pretty good amount of time. That's a third of my life, basically. Yeah, you look at like spray foam worldwide, and everyone's worried about it looking like butter and stuff like that, and it's just like, let's see your first stuff.
Right.
I mean, how much time did it take you to get to this point?
That point,
and,
exactly.
I mean, so there's a lot of that stuff, and I mean, I put my foam, Trent's foam up against pretty much anybody's anymore. I mean, we take a lot of pride in our work, and yeah, I mean, I'm proud of the work that we do on a daily basis now. So.
Well, and the technical aspect of it is one thing, but the fact that it's your business, or you're each approaching it as your profession, means that you care. And even if you run into something with foam application that you've never run into, which is inevitable for anybody, even after 10 years, the difference between somebody that happens upon a rig for a do-it-yourself versus a professional is that the professionals want to take care of it immediately because time is money, and also because their name is on the job, and they want to do the best that they can because they, at the end of the day, it's what's feeding their family. In my opinion, Tucker's a ticking time bomb here, so I'll keep it short. But there's one more thing that I wanted to address before we wrap it up, and that was the recent Spray Foam magazine article that Dakota Applicators had a write-up about. If you could just talk about the whole situation and the benefits of what happened, and yeah, floor is yours.
Yeah. No, that was pretty cool article that they came out with. So yeah, I got contacted here a couple months ago, and they were just kind of, the different jobs that I'd done, and there's one that had always stuck in my mind, and it was this shop that had some fire damage to it. Like it was completely engulfed. It was a complete loss. As far as all the equipment, everything inside of it, but they were able to save the structure and most of the steel on the building, except for some of the bigger holes that the fire department had, cut in there, or that had rusted through actually too, just from being old. I mean, it was 1985 shop, I think, or something like that, when that thing was built. And they called me up, and I went out there and took a look, and both me and DJ was still around. That was one thing that they were off on the article on. But went out there, took a look, said, "Yep, we can do this." And they were worried about the structural, because that steel, having that fire on it, heating up that much, all this other stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to guarantee that it's going to hold up forever, but I think that if we do a 3-inch app on this shop here, like, it's going to make it the building you want it to be. And so we did. We went out there. We, got pressure washer, washed it all off, oils and all the stuff from the smoke damage and things like that. Did some adhesion tests, and yeah, it was sticking. So we started spraying, and got it done. I think this is back in 2012 or 13. I can't remember the exact time of this shop. But did the whole job, and then that next spring, my uncle, who he sells propane and gas, he's a gas man here in Gettysburg, and he delivered propane out to that farm since they got propane heater out there. And he said, he come up to me and he says, "I'm not kidding you, it was over 50% savings on this winter's propane bill." He said, "Keep doing what you're doing. That's awesome." And so it was pretty cool. Like, someone that firsthand, like, he sells it, but he's an uncle and he's older and he doesn't really care anymore, really. But he's like, that's cool. The fact that what you did from one year to the next saved over 50% on their fuel bill, like, that's unbelievable to him. And so I'm very proud of that building. I mean, it's
a cool real world example of just what foam can do for people. It's a fun dynamic between the Fischer nephews and the uncle, but just the real world application and the real numbers that here he is delivering fuel to this customer of both of yours, and because of what you did, he unfortunately had 50% reduction in business, but that's just how much it's saving the customer with what you provided them. I love it.
Right. 100%. No, and that's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, like I told you before, we won't just go do fiberglass, because I don't think that that's the way a house should be insulated anymore. It was good back in the 80s and the 90s, early 2000s, whatever. But now that we have this available to us, if you're doing anything besides spray foam, I think you're going backwards. And it's not like I'm not the green save the world guy. I'm just saying, like, you could save some green in your pocket by insulating your house properly.
Yeah.
We heat or cool our houses 6 to 8 months out of the year. That's being conservative. I'd say probably 9 to 10 months. Some sort of either heating or cooling in your home is being done.
Right.
In most parts of the United States, 10 months out of the year, that's happening.
In layman terms, it's like buying a Yeti cooler versus buying a styrofoam cooler down at the 7-Eleven.
100%.
It costs a little bit more up front, but it holds that temperature significantly longer.
Yeah, no, and I do give this example a lot too, just on the efficiency side of things. My stepdad's cold storage hangar. In the summer times, it would get brutally hot in there, just because it was an 80 by 120, 412 pitch, so it's got huge amount of surface area on the roof. And with the colors they picked, it was a darker brown, so that steel would just get hotter than the devil's anus and radiate down. And so we went in there and we put 1.5 inches in there just to take that edge off. Now, you go into that building and it's 30 degrees cooler in there than it is outside most afternoons. It made that building an entire different building. So, for one, finding for those people listening, finding the right person that's going to do, don't just pick any spray foam. The cheapest isn't the best. It's the person that's going to do the right by you. You got to trust them, because, you're spending 2.5 times the money probably, but, doing it proper is the only way to go. And like I said, I have a hard time doing some things because, like fiberglass, won't put it in the walls without some spray foam, just because I don't believe in it. It has its place. Don't get me wrong. Fiberglass has its place, and it's in the attic, blown in, typically. So.
And not in Dakota Applicators.
Well, that's my stance, and I'm sticking to it. So.
Well, Michael, we're going to have you back on for part 2 of Dakota Applicators regarding your concrete coatings, but I think I've used up enough of your time, and primarily Tucker's deciding that, but I appreciate you coming on.
You bet. Well, thanks for having me on, buddy. It was a good time chatting with you, and I hope that I didn't sound like a blubbering idiot to the listeners out there. I just get very passionate about this, and so it's fun to talk about. So I'm always open to to comments and talking with people about this, because I wouldn't do it if I wasn't very, very passionate and a true believer of what this industry could do for this entire country. Honestly, if you start spray foaming every single house that's being built right now, and you can say, even at 30% efficiency, and we can boast up to 50 because that's what they say, but let's say 30. That's 30% energy reduction in every single home.
It's pretty incredible.
Have to tell that we're saving the planet, but
you might as well put an S on our chest.
Exactly. Big old F.
Big old S.
So,
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, where can they find you? Can they find you on Facebook? What should they look for?
You can find me personally on the Facebook, Michael Fischer. I got the little middle name changed in there. We also have Dakota Applicators Facebook page, or you can check us out at www.dakotaapplicators.com. And we got our email set up on there and everything like that. So feel free to reach out, and I'd love to discuss with anybody. So
awesome. Thank you, Michael. And for those listening, if you liked what you heard and you want to come back for more, we'd appreciate it if you hit the like button, hit the share button, and spread the word, spread the foam word. Michael, love you, buddy.
All right, buddy. Take care. Love you too. Bye, Tucker.